There are no closed session recommendations, consent agenda items. Anyone have anything they'd like to have taken off? If not, I'd look for a motion to move the items found in the consent portion. Tony and Jim, all those in favor? That's carried unanimously. Business arising, there is none. Correspondence, none. Police services reports, there is none. Chief of police reports. I think the first one's 11.1. And I don't know if the chief, you're going to introduce this or Staff Sergeant Griffiths is joining us.
Good morning, Chair McLean and all members of the board. Thanks very much. Look forward to sharing some interesting and dynamic reports with you this morning. So I'm going to have Superintendent Brenna Bond just to introduce Staff Sergeant Griffiths and the highlights from the road safety traffic plan. So over to Superintendent Bond.
Good morning, Chair McLean, Chief Kroll, and members of the board. I'd like to introduce our Staff Sergeant of Traffic Services, Scott Griffiths. He is going to present our road safety plan for 2024. And welcome, Scott. I saw he was on here and he will present the report. Thanks.
Thank you, Superintendent, Chair, Chief, Deputy Chiefs, members of the board. I'm very pleased to speak to you today in regards to our 2023 year in review regarding traffic safety and our 2024 road safety plan. Holly, if I could ask you to open up the PowerPoint. I could have the next slide, please. Chair and members of the board, we're going to start with a 2023 year in review. Holly, next slide as well, please. We're going to start out the year in review with a review of fatal and major injury collisions in 2023. Just for some context in regards to our region, last year there were approximately 15,837 total collisions reported in our region, with 2,550 of those including injury. Fatalities decreased last year to 10. That's a reduction of 23% overall, with major injury types increasing 4.5%. For context, we classify major injury as life-threatening, life-altering, or a injury to a high risk individuals. 60% of those collisions were linked to the fatal four, which are, as we know, apologize, I have my video off. As we know, speeding, impaired driving, distracted driving, and seatbelts. Impairment was a factor in 2 of the 10 fatal collisions we investigated last year, and 60% of those occurred on rural township roadways. Holly, can I have the next slide, please? As you can see from the charts here, last year, in regards to fatal injuries, Woolwich Township had the majority of collisions involved at 5, with Waterloo, Cambridge, and Wilmot having smaller portions. Major injury collisions, a majority of which were in the larger cities, Kitchener, Waterloo, and Cambridge, making up a good portion of them at 78%, 22% of those taking place in rural divisions. If you could go to the next slide, please. And now a review of our 2023 enforcement results. Last year, total road safety charges increased by 9% to 23,105 in 2023. Out of those 23,000 charges, 8,201 fatal 4 charges were laid. Again, those include impaired driving, speeding, seatbelt use, and distracted driving. Stunt driving charges, which we commonly known as high speeds, increased 19% to 631. Our rural townships Wilmot, Woolwich, excuse me, North Dumfries, and Wellesley. 4,703 charges were laid on rural township roadways last year. 30% of all stunt driving charges occurred on rural township roadways. Next slide, please. Impaired driving, a major concern for our service and for my traffic safety unit. Last year, 939 total impaired driving charges were laid. That's an increase of over 3% over 2022. And impairment, again, was considered a factor in 2 of our 10 fatalities last year. Drug recognition, which is a function of a traffic services unit. We have approximately 16 drug recognition experts trained in our branch to recognize signs of impairment from drugs and or alcohol. Those officers are contacted by road patrol officers who arrest parties for impaired driving. 101 of those evaluations were conducted in 2023. Of those 101 evaluations, 79 persons were issued license suspensions related to their impairment, which also implies that they were charged with an offense of impaired driving by drug. WRPS is 5th in the province for issuing these suspensions. ADSE enforcement. The ADSE is a drug driving testing module that we possess in traffic services that tests for the presence of drugs in young and novice drivers, as well as commercial vehicle drivers. Last year, 31 roadside suspensions were issued for testing positive for the presence of drugs within those demographics. And WRPS is the provincial leader in ADSE use and suspensions. Next slide, please. Moving on to our road safety plan for 2024. The priorities that we have laid out are to reduce major injury, collisions, and fatalities by strategically targeting the key issues causing them, the fatal 4. Simply put, the fatal 4 offenses are by far the largest driver of our major injuries and fatalities. To combat impaired driving through ride program initiatives, daily enforcement, and public awareness. To increase proactive road safety enforcement, including the use of monthly road safety teams that utilize teams of members from our patrol divisions to conduct focused and client-driven enforcement initiatives. Continued enforcement on rural townships with a focus on aggressive driving. As stated earlier, a large portion of our stunt drivers were found to be on rural roadways, and given the high instances of fatalities and serious injuries on those roadways, continued efforts in rural townships is a focus. Next slide, please. New for 2024, a increased social media engagement for young persons and novice drivers, including positive driving behaviors and to some extent pedestrian behaviors, and operating motor vehicles with 0 alcohol and drugs. TSU, the Traffic Services Unit, will continue to lead training and education for members of modified vehicles and inspections. Modified vehicles being a cause of concern for their noise and other illegal activities. Major expansion, as we know, of the ALPR has significantly increased usage of the ALPR across the WRPS. TSU will continue to offer support and training in that regard. And I'd like to thank you for your attention today. And barring any questions from the public, I thank you for your time.
Still working on it.
Okay, is that better? Okay. My earbuds don't seem to be working. In anybody, questions or comments from the board? Sandy?
Thank you. Is that better? Okay. My question is related to the fatalities and the injuries in the townships in particular. And I'm not sure if you can parse this out, but how many of them are in the settlements and how many of them are outside the settlements? I think there's two kinds of traffic that we're concerned about in the townships.
Thank you, Mayor Shantz. I'd have to parse that out using our statistics from last year, but I would say that anecdotally, it would be a large number of them would be in the higher speed rural areas, higher speed rural roadways, the 80 km/h zones that are outside the settlements. Just off the top of my head, I don't recall. Apologize, my video keeps turning off. I don't recall any being located within the settlements, but I can confirm that and get back to you.
Okay, just that. Sorry, we've got some echoing going on here. It's we've got concerns in our townships, in our towns as well, because people tend to travel through at high rates of speed. So, thanks.
Absolutely.
Sorry, I think Karen, were you someone else? Karen quickly up.
Yeah, thank you. Just a quick question. Thank you for the presentation. In regards to the ADSE numbers, there's a certain percentage that are young novice drivers and a certain percentage that are commercial vehicles. Do we have that percentage per category?
I don't, unfortunately. I could get that for you and reply to the board with that information. Those are the only two categories of drivers that are currently being examined under that provision in the HTA.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're up.
Can everybody hear me?
me?
We're going to take a 2-minute break just to deal with some IT issues, so please stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Okay. That was our 2 minutes, was it? Okay. Is everyone technical issues were all good? Chief, can you and people remotely hear us? Good. Okay, I think we were on 11.1. We finished with the safety traffic plan. Is there any, I can't remember, any questions? We finished with that? There's no recommendation. So I think we'll move on to 11.2. Kirsten Hand's joining us for the December 2023 variance report on budget. Chief, do you want to introduce this?
I'll slide it right over to our Director of Finance and Assets, Kirsten Hand. Thank you.
Hello, just going to share my screen. Okay. Sorry about that. All right, so our 2023 actuals have been finalized. Therefore, I'm going to take you through those results today. If I first focus on the operating budget, we did close the year with a 346K surplus. That represents approximately 0.2% of the budget. I will note that the last 2 years we have closed at a very low percentage
surplus of the budget. If I focus on some of the components of the operating budget, first we'll look at staffing costs. And I will note within the consent report, it did identify that we have amended the way that we're reporting our results. So the Appendix A and Appendix B will look a little bit differently than what you have seen in previous quarterly reports. We also restated the actuals. So hopefully this breakdown provides you better information. So from a staffing cost perspective, we did close the year over budget, and that's predominantly due to two items. The first one is overtime. So we did have an increase in overtime hours over the previous year, but we continue to be over budget from an overtime perspective. And the second item is benefits. So we had been reporting on that we expected our budget to be over budget in relation to benefits for medical, dental, WSIB costs. I will note, as it's an explanation later on within the report, that Sun Life does a reconciliation at the end of the year and looks at what have they billed us versus what the actuals were. And as a result of that reconciliation, it did result in $1.2 million being charged back to us. We did make the decision to fund that from the benefit claims stabilization reserve. That reserve is over target, and that will show up a little bit later on within the variance report as well. I will just also note that we do come to the board in May on a fulsome reserve report. So at this point, our surplus has gone into our general reserve, which is consistent with our reserve and reserve fund policy. From a non-staffing cost perspective, we had some variances. Some of the larger ones are noted here. We saw some additional spending due to more grants received and or some of our recovery-based purchases. So some of our programs like Pride and Fire Services at times ask us to purchase things on their behalf. We turn around and bill them back. So some of these variances, again, will show up on the revenue side. We were over budget in terms of some of our meeting, training, and conference costs, some of our fleet maintenance costs. We did do a transfer to our sick leave reserve to fund grandparented people off on our old central sick bank plan. And also as part of the year end, our P25 voice radio chargeback model, any surplus that results within that in terms of our recoveries from the region partners, that goes to the voice radio reserve. So we did do that entry as well. From an under budget perspective, we did continue to see lower uniform, fuel price costs, also drew some savings, some lower expenses than anticipated on some computer software maintenance system maintenance costs, and some lower costs than budgeted in terms of some of our communication telephone costs. On a revenue perspective, we did see higher revenues in areas such as record check revenue, so volumes associated with that, additional grants and cost recovery programs than originally budgeted. We had some timing elements related to our CSP grant. We had identified with the new contract for the court security and prisoner transportation that would be a surplus we would see in our results, and that did come through. Again, as I mentioned before, we saw some additional revenues from Pride to offset related expenses. And then as well, when we talked through the benefits, I noted that we did fund that overage from the benefit stabilization reserve. From a capital perspective, we did spend about $28 million in 2023. That's about 74% of the budget, and we are carrying forward $11 million. You will note that we did move some money between a couple accounts just to account for some projects that might have been over budget and under budget. From a fleet perspective, we purchased 60 vehicles throughout the years. 3 of them were growth related. I'll just touch upon a couple of our projects that concluded in 2023. We implemented our automated asset and evidence management solution at our new central division. Work continues on the replacement in partnership with the region for our HRIS system. We also noted throughout the year that we did receive grant monies to fund automated license plate readers. So you'll see that come through on our body worn and in-car video line. We replaced our administrative phone system. The P25 voice radio project that was done in partnership with the region, that has now concluded. So that project is now complete. We implemented an electric charging station at North Division. We moved our magazine storage to Waterloo region. And lastly, we implemented a body scanner, although it's not yet put into operation at Central at the end of the year. So that concludes the overview in terms of our 2023 results. So thank you.
Okay, there we are. Questions from the board or comments? I just wanted to ask one question, Kirsten. You talked about the change of reporting, and I wanted to maybe give an explanation of that it better reflects the true context of the staffing expenditures. So trying to connect overtime and staffing and benefits so that it's clearer how those components fit together. Is that I mean that's I think some of the direction and the conversation we've had at the board to make sure that it's clear that how to connect all those things. I don't know, Chief or Kirsten.
Kirsten, if you're able to start there, thanks.
Sure. So previously we just had one line item that talked to salary and wages. So we did break that out into various components: full-time, part-time, overtime, paid duties, which we receive a corresponding revenue in our revenue side, and any sick leave payout and continuance that we do to members. So we did break out our salary and wages line and grouped things in there that from the allowance, there was some kind of staffing related costs that used to previously be included in our allowance line. And so we moved that up to make it a bit more fulsome as to what is our true staffing costs. So we did provide a greater breakdown of the staffing costs. And then throughout the rest of the report, we did try to group things a little bit more that would be easier for people to identify some of the variances.
And that gives us a better complete picture of our staffing needs and how we're managing that from both a budget perspective as well as an operational perspective. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. I don't see any other questions. I think it's remarkable. I think the percentage was 0.2% in terms of being at the budget. So congratulations to the chief and the administrative team. No other questions. I think we'll move on to 11.3. Chief Hassan Siddiqui and Mandy Williams are joining us for Search of Persons 2023. Chief, any opening comments, or are we going right to them?
Just a quick acknowledgement of Hassan Siddiqui and Mandy Williams, both from Strategic Services, our expert team leading many of these reports. So this is an annual report that acknowledges our search of persons, heavily proceduralized activity within policing, and we're happy to provide a race-based and identity-based data analysis as well. So over to the team. Thank you.
All righty. Can everyone see my screen okay? All righty. Thank you, Chief. Good afternoon, Chair McLean and members of the board. Good afternoon to our IT team who are helping out very graciously. So I'll get started. So just as a quick reminder, search of persons in custody is one of the 4 interactions where perceived race data is collected. And there's a reason why search of persons in custody is included within the race-based data collection strategy. So just for some context, in 2019, the Office of the Independent Police Review Director released their Breaking the Golden Rule, a review of police strip searches in Ontario, a report which indicated that police services were not adequately documenting search of person information, nor were they recording race-related information in strip searches. In 2020, WRPS conducted an internal audit of searches of persons in custody, and as endorsed by the Police Services Board, the recommendations from the OIPRD and audit report were translated into procedures and process changes related to search of persons in custody, including the collection of person characteristics data. In response, an electronic application was developed to facilitate data collection. 2022 represented the first full year of data collection with respect to searches of persons in custody. And 2023 saw the release of the niche custody module, which was designed to improve data quality and reporting. A third of the data presented in this report is still derived from the application, which presents some limitations in the analysis as outlined in our report. In 2024, the niche custody module will become the primary data collection tool for all searches in our service. So that's the context behind the analysis. Now we'll move on to the searches themselves. Each person, when entering into a WRPS custodial facility, is searched for contraband, including evidence, tools to escape custody, or any object that could cause injury to themselves or others, including officers. There are 4 levels of search, and any search beyond a frisk search must be deemed reasonable and authorized by the officer in charge of a prisoner management facility or a patrol supervisor. The primary reason for searches is safety concerns. A frisk search involves patting down of the person, emptying and searching pockets, as well as the removal or rearrangement of clothing that does not expose the person's undergarments or area of the body that is normally covered by undergarments. This may include checking the personal possessions. An intake search is more comprehensive than a frisk search and is done in a more controlled environment, sometimes with the use of a wand to detect items and there's an opportunity for the person to indicate what items the wand may have detected. During a strip search level 1, the person removes their own clothing, one piece of clothing at a time, down to the undergarments, and members inspect the article of clothing in a methodical manner. The person shall be allowed to replace each article of clothing immediately after inspection, unless doing so would compromise the safety or integrity of the search. In a strip search level 2, the person removes their own clothing, one piece of clothing at a time, including the undergarments, and members inspect the article of clothing in a methodical manner. Again, the person shall be allowed to replace each article of clothing immediately after inspection, unless doing so would compromise the safety or integrity of the search. So in 2023, there were 372,165 police occurrences. These occurrences resulted in 15,421 arrests, which in turn led to 4,243 searches. So about 28% of all arrests resulted in a search of person. Consistent with what was observed in 2022, the most common search type in 2023 was intake searches, which comprised 80% of all searches. In 2023, strip search level 1 and level 2 comprised 15% of all searches. So now we move on to our analysis of person characteristics. In line with the Ontario data standards for the identification and monitoring of systemic racism, we apply 2 different analytic approaches. First, we calculate racial disproportion. Here, the proportion of individuals within a police data set are compared to the local resident population proportions. The full analysis is provided in the board report, but we did observe overrepresentation on the basis of age, with 18 to 44-year-olds overrepresented, gender, with males overrepresented, and race, with Black and Middle Eastern individuals overrepresented as compared to the local resident population. Second, we have enforcement action benchmarking. Here, benchmark ratios are used to compare the proportion of individuals from groups at different points within enforcement. Ratios exceeding a cutoff value serve as flags for further investigation into the policy, practice, and procedures that inform police decision-making. So for brevity, this presentation will present 2 examples of enforcement action benchmarking. This analytic focus will help us to identify the drivers of overrepresentation. By engaging in this strategy, we can move towards understanding what aspects of the system of policing, including policy, procedure, and practice, may account for the observed overrepresentation so we can further investigate and make changes to address systemic discrimination where needed. So we begin by talking about gender. And in this graph, I present percentages, not counts. The blue bars here represent 2022 numbers with lighter bars for women and darker bars for men. And the red bars represent 2023 numbers with lighter bars for women and darker bars for men. So in 2023, 856 searches were performed on females. Of these, 71% of all searches on females were intake searches. So that's the red bar. So that's the light red bar in the intake category. In 2023, 3,324 searches were performed on males. Of these, 84% of all searches on males were intake searches, which is that dark red bar in the intake category. In 2022, we observed the overrepresentation of females in level 1 strip searches. So that's the blue circle on the graph. In 2023, we see the overrepresentation of females in level 2 strip searches, the red circle on the graph. While we continue to see the overrepresentation of women in more comprehensive searches, further investigation is required to understand decision-making leading to level 1 and level 2 strip searches. So now we move on to perceived race. The colored bars here represent different racial groups, and the percentages of types of searches for each racial group are presented. For example, 307 individuals perceived as Middle Eastern were taken into custody in 2023. And for 85% of these individuals, the highest type of search was an intake search. So again, here that would be the red bar under the intake category. Many of these groups involve small numbers. But I draw your attention to the Black, Middle Eastern, and white categories, represented by the dark blue, red, and green bars respectively. The percentages of these groups for each level of search are presented above the bars. We see an underrepresentation of racialized groups in strip searches level 1 and 2. The green bar, representing white individuals, is the tallest, particularly for strip search level 2. However, young Black and Middle Eastern individuals were overrepresented in search of persons as compared to their adult counterparts. Future attention will be given to better understanding this pattern, and the full analyses can be seen in the report. So moving forward, as mentioned earlier, there will be service-wide expansion of the niche custody module. This will improve data collection, data quality, and will help provide more contextual data related to officer decision-making, allowing for more fulsome analysis. We will continue to collaborate with our academic partners, Drs. Les Jacobs and Lauren Foster, to identify ways to better understand and investigate the trends we see in our data. In January, we hosted our first community engagement event related to the race and identity-based data collection strategy. We will continue to host these sessions to better examine our data and identify community-focused solutions to any concerning trends. Thank you so much, as always, for your time. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to take them.
Well, thank you for the presentation. Always fascinating and important information. Questions from the board or comments? Don't. Karen.
Thank you very much for this update. And I've always said that governments measure what they value and change what they measure. One of the ongoing challenges seems to be how small some of the samples are. And I'm wondering if over time, as we measure this, if trends will be more informative. Certainly not suggesting that we do more searches than are warranted, but I'm just wondering, is that trend line maybe going to be tell us more than the individual snapshot?
Through you, Chief.
Yeah, please go ahead go ahead.
Yeah, that's a great point and a very valuable point. We do include year-by-year comparisons in our use of force and intelligence notes reports for that reason exactly, so that we can see across in these individual snapshots whether trends are continuing or changing, especially for some of the smaller groups. And so as we continue to collect data with respect to searches of persons, we'll engage in the exact same strategy to be able to see those trends.
Okay, thank you for that. Other questions, comments? No, thanks very much for the update, Dr. Williams and Mr. Siddiqui. I think we'll move on. 11.4 is the Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan, Combating Hate. And I think Mandy's staying with us. Inspector Mathias and Geraldine Stafford are joining us. Chief, any opening comments, or I don't know who's leading it?
Yeah, thanks, Chair McLean. Just to introduce the team. So Inspector Aaron Mathias will be leading today's presentation on the team's behalf. He's our liaison for the Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan broadly, but representing us all in those efforts. Geraldine Stafford, our Manager of Equity, Diversity, Inclusion, helps to lead some of our efforts on hate crimes and hate incidents, in addition to our operational teams, frontline and investigative services as well. And then Dr. Mandy Williams is supporting all of this work from an analytical standpoint. So today's presentation will provide a myriad of statistics broadly, but also as a backdrop locally, more importantly, about our efforts moving forward. So over to Aaron. Thank you.
See if everyone can see this. Excellent. Well, good afternoon, Chief Kroll, Chair McLean, and members of the board. Pleased to join you this morning to review the 2023 annual hate crime report, and pleased to have company as well today. To frame us in community safety well-being, the Region of Waterloo Plan provides the opportunity, governance, and structure to address important social issues in a multi-sector and collaborative way. The plan's priorities, which were identified in 2023 and listed here, and today's report provides information which demonstrates our commitment to safety and informs our efforts in combating hate within the Region of Waterloo. As we move into the report, I will note that the information reflects only the criminal offenses that were reported to the Waterloo Regional Police Service, and the data is current as of March 13th, 2024. We'll start with a brief refresher on the definitions of hate crimes, hate-motivated crimes, and hate-motivated incidents. A hate crime refers specifically to a police-reported criminal offense designated in the Criminal Code of Canada, for example, the public incitement of hatred. Separately, there are hate-motivated incidents and hate-motivated crimes. A hate-motivated incident refers to an incident where an individual has demonstrated hateful behavior towards someone else on the basis of their identity, but without breaking a law. Police-reported crime motivated by hate, or hate-motivated crime, refers to a criminal offense that includes a hate motivation. For example, someone spray paints graffiti of a swastika on private property. Since 2019, the amount of hate-motivated crime has increased every year. In 2023, there were 369 cases of hate-motivated crime, which is a 94% increase from the previous year. Looking now to a breakdown of the offense types of those 369 incidents. In 2023, the majority of hate-motivated crimes in the Region of Waterloo were non-violent at 58%. Of the 369 hate-motivated crimes in 2023, approximately 40% were mischief calls, which include offensive graffiti. The next most common incident type was level 1 assault. This proportional breakdown of hate-motivated crimes is consistent with the national trends provided in the attached 2022 StatsCan report. Of note, in 2023, our service laid 5 criminal charges for hate crimes as designated under the Criminal Code, and 34 criminal charges in relation to hate-motivated crimes. Now we move to frequency by hate crime type. When a hate-motivated crime is being coded for the Uniform Crime Reporting Survey, information on the affected group is provided. Hate-motivated crimes are organized first by which protected ground they relate. So you can see here, race, religion, sexual orientation, and then further by which specific group they target. For example, Black, South Asian, etc. Hate-motivated crimes in Waterloo Region are most frequently race-motivated. This saw a significant increase of 96% in 2023, as did the second most frequent hate-motivated crimes targeting sexual orientation, which surpassed hate-motivated crimes that targeted religion. From the previous slide, drilling down a little further, the following groups were the most impacted by hate-motivated crimes in Waterloo Region in 2023. Between 2020 and 2023, there were 154 hate-motivated crimes targeting religious groups. 67 of those occurred in 2023. The vast majority of police-reported hate-motivated crimes targeting religious groups affected Jewish individuals, a trend continuing to increase year on year. 58 of the 67 hate-motivated crimes toward religious groups targeted Jewish individuals. From 2020 to 2023, there were 387 hate-motivated crimes on the basis of race, 190 occurring in 2023. Across all 4 years, these hate-motivated crimes most often targeted Black individuals. In 2023, 43% of those crimes were based on race targeted Black individuals. And again, from 2020 to 2023, there were 131 hate-motivated crimes targeting individuals based on their sexual orientation. Notably, 83 of these occurred in 2023. This represents a 159% increase from the previous year. The majority of hate-motivated crimes on the basis of sexual orientation in 2023 targeted the group unknown sexual orientation, which is a label used to describe hate-motivated crimes targeting the 2 SLGBTQ+ community generally. Lastly, we look at the police services response to hate. From an investigative perspective, whenever hate is cited in a call for service, even if there are no grounds to establish that the incident as a hate-motivated crime, our procedure mandates that our frontline response notifies both our hate crime unit and the equity, diversity and inclusion unit. These responses may also include additional resources from our investigative services division. The Waterloo Regional Police Service is also a member of the Hate Crime and Extremism Investigative Team. This is a network of 18 police services responsible for intelligence gathering and specialized support on investigations into hate-motivated crimes. HSET is centralized at WRPS. This dual notification ensures the highest visibility of every incident, even for the most innocuous incidents, to monitor trends, ensure victims' experience is validated, which includes collaboration with victim services of Waterloo Region to ensure that effective support is provided to victims of hate. And continuing on with many other aspects of our service delivery, we continue to innovate. In 2024, the service was awarded the Frontline Policing Grant from the Ministry of the Solicitor General. The funding from this grant will help to establish a regional reporting system, for example, a mobile phone app for hate-motivated incidents, and to ensure we are using the most accurate data to establish cohesive regional reporting strategy to inform ourselves and our public safety partners. The project will be community-led with intentional outreach to the most affected communities, truly meeting local community needs and addressing hate in a modern way. In 2023, combating hate was identified as a regional priority under the Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan. The hate crime data provided in this report emphasizes the need for community mobilization to address the rise of hate-motivated crime in the region. Most importantly, the centralization of reporting of hate crime and hate incident data. Thank you.
Well, thank you for the report, Inspector Matthias. Questions, comments from the board? I'll start with Chair Redmond.
Chair McLean, I'm really interested in our approach. When you talk to people in communities where there are incidents of hate, sometimes there's a reluctance to identify them or report them because they don't know if they meet the threshold. And I wonder if you could just speak to the approach of whether or not they reach the threshold of a crime, because I think that would be really reassuring to communities that they need to come forward and report this irrespective of how the severity fits into other definitions provided by legislation.
Thanks, Chair Redmond. So I'll pitch to Geraldine Stafford in a moment, but you're absolutely right. There's some silver lining with these increasing trends where While alarming across Canada and locally, we continue to see a rise of reported hate crimes and hate incidents, but we believe that this is just scratching the surface on the information that's available in our community. So the outreach and the connections with groups, neighborhoods, and every organization across the region to centralize reporting will assist our entire community being mobilized moving forward. But I'll just pitch it to Geraldine to just give some sense of how we support those with hate incidents that don't result in prosecution of any kind.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Chief. So essentially, every report, as Inspector Mathias says, receives the same level of response. We ensure that the victim feels supported, and then we also align with culturally appropriate resourcing, in the case that there's some cultural sensitivity. And, I guess at the end of the day, what we're looking for is report it, and the police will make the differentiation. So it doesn't matter how innocuous, how small, and how maybe insignificant you may feel the incident is. That's not for the community to determine. We'll make the determination, but the level of support will be there.
Okay, thank you for that. I think Doug.
Is that better? Okay. I'm glad to be clued in here. No, I'm just disappointed in the statistics. I mean, it's really a bit startling to some extent, and I'm surprised to a great extent about what we're seeing. And I'm glad that at least we're on it and we're trying to do our best to support the community. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
I think I mean, maybe just a question related to that is why this year? Is it just more reporting? Like the number went up, what was it, 97% indicated? Is that just more reporting, or is that is this a COVID follow on? I don't know, Mandy or Inspector Mathias. It was startling to see that number in the report.
So, I mean, I don't mind starting. So just for those who can see the staggering of our reporting. So this, the impetus was that StatsCan released the 2022 finalized data. So that gives us a rear view mirror in terms of what occurred a couple of years ago. But the trajectory over time has been increasing and incremental Canada-wide. And so we wanted to bring the most recent and relevant data for 2023. And then I would say even more recently, with the emergence of geopolitical issues, polarization politically across many fronts, some of it can be explained by that. And I would say that we have a lot to be proud of in this region, that we have identified this as a key priority for us to come together, to mobilize, to identify all systems, all organizations to come together and on the reporting front. But where we need to get to is a robust plan on education and intervention and total community mobilization across all sectors. And that's what the purpose of the Community Safety Wellbeing Plan priority will seek to do. I'm happy if Mandy Williams or Aaron or Geraldine have any further insights to share. But what I can say is I'm very proud that we are connected to provincial networks, national networks, and we're monitoring this holistically, globally, is to see the rise of this. And when I mentioned a silver lining in the previous response, is that we believe that we do have systems within this community that can really bring some of this to light. And we know that some of the trends are alarming, but we are absolutely focused on making best efforts. We can't do it alone as a police agency. We need to have the educational sector at the table. We need to have all community groups representing some vulnerable and marginalized communities where they may not have a complete access to reporting in traditional means. So that's the vision. And I can say that Waterloo region over the past several months with the geopolitical issues related to Gaza has weathered some of these storms better than some other jurisdictions and communities across Canada. I can say that with certainty.
Geraldine, are you unmuted? Did you want to come in?
Oh, No, any comment I really want to say really echoed the chief's comments about the geopolitical landscape. That we know certain touch points within the region that has affected the certain demographics that are affected.
Okay, thank you very much. I don't see any other questions, comments from the board. Thank you. Moving on. 12.0 monthly chief of police report. I'm guessing that's you, chief.
It is, thank you. So very proud to provide the chief of police report for the past month, and just will highlight a mix of operational and also some concerted efforts for our organizational reach. So within the last month, we've made some major investigative steps related to drugs and organized crime. So as an example, in March 5th, with the assistance of the Guelph Police Service, our members completed 6 search warrants in residences across Kitchener and Cambridge. And as a result, a significant level of drugs, the number of drugs were seized and identified, ultimately leading to the arrest of several individuals charged with over 35 criminal charges. Similarly, some concerted efforts related to drug enforcement and weapon-related offenses. On March 11th, officers located 2 males in possession of a stolen vehicle and stolen property in Cambridge. Again, seized a significant amount of drugs, weapons as well, and a stolen vehicle. The equipment seized was in the excess of $10,000. Ultimately, 2 males from Cambridge were arrested and charged with various offenses. Highlighting one of many violent offenses under investigation by our investigative services members. There was a shooting incident in Kitchener on March 5th in the area of Wilson Avenue and Kingsway Drive in Kitchener. A dynamic incident resulted in multiple gunshots fired. One individual was struck, left the scene before police arrival. This was a targeted incident, and certainly we're continuing that investigation by our General Investigations Unit and seeking the public's assistance to resolve that investigation. Focusing on road safety. So we had an excellent presentation today by our Traffic Services Unit. We know that through our strategic planning outreach, this remains one of the top concerns in our community. So you can see our road safety efforts displayed for the month of February, a significant number of proactive and responsive charges to area across the region of Waterloo. And for some examples, we know that one area of significant concern is the McQueen-Shaver Boulevard area and the Torthwick Township of North Dumfries. So as one example of some of our excellent work, over a 5-hour period, 30 charges were laid, resulting in 10 stunt driving charges, speeding charges, and also 5 careless driving charges in just 5 hours of proactive traffic enforcement activity. And also similarly, we're looking at safety on our roadways in many means. So commercial vehicle enforcement is a key aspect of traffic enforcement. And as one example, on February 29th, members of our direct action response team conducted enforcement targeting unsafe vehicles in the area of Victoria Street in Kitchener. A number of vehicles were stopped, found to be not in compliance, and you can see 36 charges were laid in that proactive enforcement. Changing gears, over the past weekend, our members were significantly devoted to the St. Patrick's Day deployment over the course of the weekend. Major planning occurred over the weeks and months in advance, and this event was handled very successfully by our members, an unsanctioned gathering in coordination with our community partners, the City of Waterloo, the universities, and many other public safety partners assisting us, paramedic services, and fire services as well. In totality, the crowd was estimated to be just under 10,000 people at its peak, and our enforcement efforts resulted in 257 charges laid, 10 arrests were made in totality, and thankfully there were no violent incidents to report. Our total calculation of the funding required for this deployment continues, and we look forward to sharing that in the weeks to come. There will be a fulsome report in our April board meeting. Also just want to signify some great community outreach and connections. As you know, we held our Polar Plunge on March 2nd. We raised a record level number of funds with 53,000. So we thank our community and all those who came out to support and support us in so many ways for this major fundraiser for the Special Olympics of Ontario. And very proudly, we launched the Draft an Athlete program which seeks to instill a sense of connection and community spirit as we march towards the games that will be held in May 2024. So we're appealing to all residents, all business owners, all organizations to draft an athlete and assist with all those efforts. And that was a successful launch a couple of weeks ago. Just quickly, International Women's Day was celebrated internally and broadly in our community. We're very proud of the women who have made this organization an incredible organization, past, present, and future. And so we're very happy to celebrate within the organization, but also broadly in the community. We also have welcomed co-op students from Conestoga College who will be immersed with our members over the course of a 7-week program across the region, paired up with our officers, learning through frontline deployment and investigative capacities, the real life work of police officers. And this is one of many proactive recruiting efforts and partnerships that will help to fulfill our future efforts. And then just in closing, one of many community connections, we're very proud to partner with many organizations, including schools across our region for Pink Shirt Day through a post-positive campaign, sharing our efforts towards kindness in many ways and lifting each other up. And you can see the partnership of youth, where our walls have become animated with color and vibrant artistic talent. Our new Central Division is really coming to life with many contributions and donations of incredible artwork that are on display in Central Division, and some are featured on the screen there. So as you know, we are very committed to many community events across the region. Displayed on the screen are some of our efforts. Service-wide, our members are devoted to serving and to knowing this community, and we look forward to many more engagements as the weather improves. That is the Chief's Police Report for this month. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chief. Any comments or questions from the board? Just two quick ones for me. The St. Paddy's Day, thank you for the update on that. I think it's better than it has been in the past. I still worry, and having in a previous world served City of Waterloo Council in the Uptown ward, that I'm really concerned that someday there'll be a serious injury or accident or death, and so I'm really concerned with having that many people congregate when there's alcohol involved, etc. I applaud the service and the city and working with the students and the post-secondary institutions, but those are still, there's a reason why they're unsanctioned, is they're not safe ultimately. So I encourage you to keep working with your partners. And I was pleased to be here for the Draft the Athlete, and I know both our chambers, the Greater KW Chamber and the Cambridge Chamber, are pleased to be drafting an athlete for the Special Olympics in May. We were here with Ron Cottle, who does so much for not only polar plunge, but this program, and encourage folks to participate and draft an athlete for that exciting event. I think it's the 24th, the 26th in May, so still time to draft an athlete. No other questions or comments. Thank you, Chief. Moving on, any new business? Seeing none. Future agenda items, information items. So just as we conclude, once we adjourn, members of the media are welcome to log into Zoom with the login details that are provided, where Chief Crowell and myself will be available to questions from the media. And with that, I look for a motion to adjourn. Moved by Jim and seconded by Doug. All those in favor?